Unless you don't know much about this hobby, you'll know Steinhart are a German brand and they have their watches made in Switzerland, and they're renowned for making high quality homages. I've lost count of how many Steinhart watches I've owned, but I do remember the first one I owned was a 42mm vintage ocean red, and I almost bought the 39mm version a while ago. At present I also own a Steinhart Marine 38, which is a watch that's been in my collection a while now. Although I have no issue regarding direct homages, I'm not a great fan either. That said, if it's a homage of a vintage watch, I'm normally prepared to give it a go. Now, although the dial layout and hands of this watch may resemble that of a vintage Rolex, it's far from anything they've ever made, so I consider this an original design, with a hint of nostalgia thrown in. Now, even though I've always been a fan of the brand, there are aspects of all their watches that annoy me a bit, so I get to those as I go along. All that said, I'll say here and now, I absolutely love this watch, despite its few annoyances. And welcome to my unpaid and unsponsored review of the Steinhart Melon GMT. Now, the Melon GMT was made in conjunction with Nomon Watches based in Singapore, who tend to make most of Steinhart watches with a smaller case. This actually being a 38mm, although the bezel width is 39mm. The lug width is 20mm, the depth including a domed and boxed sapphire crystal is 14mm, although it wears a little bit thinner than that, due to a shallow mid-case. Now the lug to lug is 47mm, and once adjusted to fit my 17cm wrist, it weighs in at 143 grams. Well, the packaging is the same as it was when Christ was born. It's quite a generic box, but it's quite well made and it comes in a nice quality cardboard outer box. I'm not disappointed, but at the same time I'm not excited either. Inside is a 2-year warranty and a cleaning cloth. What really separates this from a budget GMT watch is the movement, which is the Sellita SW330-1, and what's more, it's elaborate grade calibre. This is an office GMT as opposed to a true GMT, which personally I prefer, but some people don't. The difference being that on a true GMT, the second position of the crown operates the hour hand, whereas in the office GMT, the second position operates the GMT hand. I should also mention that on a true GMT, the date isn't quickset. Well, it ticks away at 28,800 beats per hour, meaning it's a 4Hz calibre. It hacks and it hand winds, and it's got a power reserve of 40 hours, or thereabouts. The Sellita SW200, or the movement is based on the ETA 2824, doesn't really like hand winding, but this one hand winds beautifully with very little resistance. That said, I still won't be giving it many turns, and I prefer to give it a bit of a shake. Make what you will of that. Now, they're renowned for their accuracy and reliability, and at present this one's running spot on without any notable loss or gain over the past 2 days. But let's have a look what it looks like on the time grapher. There we are, no regulation needed, a very good beat error, an excellent amplitude and a very good rate. The large 6.5mm crown is signed, nice and oiled, and it screws down to aid the watch's impressive claimed 300 metres of water resistance. Engagement when screwing the crown down is buttery smooth, which is the first time I've ever found that on a Steinhart. Now unscrew the crown. You can then wind it, pull it out once, turn it this way for the GMT hand, the other way for the date movement, once more for the time. When purchased new, you can choose from a Jubilee bracelet or this oyster style. If I'd have bought it from new, I would have probably gone for the Jubilee, even though it cost a little bit more. But I didn't buy it new. It's perfectly adequate, extremely well made, and what's more, it's very comfortable. Now it tapers down from 20mm to 16mm, then back up to 18mm for the clasp. As you would expect, it's got solid end links, and they're for the female variety, but no quick release spring bars. Now the tops are fully brushed, but the sides are polished, and size adjustment is made by removing very well engineered screw pins. Anyway, let's have a look what it might look like on a few nice straps. The clasp is ordinary, and it's the same one Steinhart have used for years. Now it's got a milled mechanism, but the shell is pressed. It's signed, it's a friction fit, and it's got a flip lock. Now there are 4 micro adjusts, so getting a decent fit is pretty easy. Like the rest of the watch, it's got a combination of very nice brushing and polishing, including this highly polished chamfer. In this particular instance, the jewel in the crown is its lume bezel with this stunning sapphire insert in a combination of 2 greens. It's nicely knurled, and the fact that it's a tad wider than the case makes it very easy to operate. Now it aligns perfectly, there's no backplay and there's no wobble, and like all Steinhart bezels, the action is absolutely fantastic. Have a little listen. The dial and Mercedes hands are loosely based on a vintage Rolex, but the colouring, needless to say, isn't. Moving in from the minute track, we've got painted indices in what I can only describe as taupe, which sit on an eggshell white dial. There is an unframed date window at 3 o'clock with the Steinhart logo and the word Steinhart under the 12 o'clock index. Above the 6 o'clock it reads Ocean 39 GMT. Either side of the 6 o'clock index it reads Swiss made. All the indices, as well as the Mercedes hands, are filled with C3 lume. However, only the pip of the second hand and the arrow of the GM hand are actually lumed. The initial lume is excellent, but because of the fact it's all painted on, the longevity is reduced compared with the dial with, say, lume filled applied indices. Here is a speeded up degradation video of that lume. The case isn't my favourite part of the watch. I like the brushed tops of the lugs, and I like the highly polished chamfers, but I would have preferred brushed sides. I also feel that it's deeper than it actually needs to be, although I appreciate the dome box sapphire crystal adds to that depth. I also think that the lug to lug could be a little bit shorter, and it wears a bit flat for my liking. None of those things would stop me buying it, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be better. Now this is how it sits on the wrist. Flip the watch over and you can see it's a brushed screw down case back, and it's got some basic information engraved around the sides. So what will one of these cost you? Well, if you buy one directly from Melon, it's currently £600 or the currency equivalent wherever you reside. But don't forget to build in the duty or the taxes. Of course, that doesn't make it a cheap watch. But let's not forget Steinhart are German and the watches are built in Switzerland. As well as that, the elaborate grade Salita SW300-1 is far from a cheap movement. Now I was lucky enough to pick up this 8-month-old mint condition one for considerably less than a new one, and I think that's the way to go. So what are my likes and dislikes? Like I said, I'm not a great lover of the case, and I always give Steinhart a bit of a dig when it comes to their clasps, but other than that it's a great watch. The sapphire bezel is probably my favourite aspect. I love the dial and you can't go wrong with that movement. All in all, this is a watch I think I'll enjoy. And I'd certainly recommend it to anybody who likes the aesthetics. So that brings me to the end of this review. If you've enjoyed it, click on the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, leave your comments below, and as usual, enjoy the rest of your day.